Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the second episode of Kalam Space Podcast. Kalam Space Podcast is all about connecting Muslim professionals to the community to spark interest within various sciences and fields in the hopes of creating a greater bond to the creator of the heavens and the earth. I'm Azim, your host for today, and Manina, my co-host, my wife.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. We're super excited for today's podcast because we have our first guest. She is someone who merges creativity and reflection so beautifully. She's a renowned poet and a blog novelist, and she has a degree of English literature with Shahd University. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Shahd Thani. Thank you, Shahd, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. This is actually my first podcast.
We hope that you are feeling comfortable, you're feeling relaxed in our very
No, I am. Thank
relaxing.
you very much.
So before we jump into the nitty-gritty, Shahd, we would like to know you on a more personal level. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and tell us how you decided to become a poet. Is it something that you always knew you wanted to do?
I didn't necessarily know that I would be a poet, but I always wanted to be a writer. My childhood was filled with books and stories. My mom read to me, and my father is a journalist, and he had a column in Al Bayan, and even that my mom would read to me.
His column.
His column.
Mashallah.
And
What was Al Bayan again?
Al Bayan is one of the UAE newspapers. But does anyone read newspapers?
I mean, not nowadays. I mean,
I guess
people in the past do, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he used to like writing about movies. He wrote reflections and columns.
Okay.
And now he moved to Instagram.
Okay. He's going with the pace of the world.
Yeah. I mean, mashallah, my dad, on every social media platform that I joined as a child, he would follow me, keep an eye out for me. Like, I joined many forums where I would share my young writing, and he would watch out for me until he got to Twitter and Facebook, and he had his own vibe.
So you mainly got the inspiration of your father, is that?
My dad is my biggest mentor.
Okay.
And my aunts, like a lot of my aunts told me bedtime stories that they would make up, like funny stories about like little boys who got lost in the park or whatever it is like. But I don't think I've ever gone without hearing stories. And eventually, like when I had sisters, I started reading stories to them or making up my own. And I knew that I wanted to be a writer. I think the poetry came much later. The poetry came at 14, and it was cringy poetry.
But at what age did you actually completed your first kind of piece of work, you can say?
16.
16.
I mean, Medina
You
probably...
started at 14.
I started at 14, but I didn't really have a place where I could showcase my poetry.
Yeah.
But then I found this international poetry website.
Okay.
And everyone was posting their poems, and I started posting there.
Okay.
Medina probably found the website.
That's for sure. Medina did her homework.
Is that the website where you have audio file as well? Is that the one, or is there another one?
No.
Oh, something I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I get to surprise you. So it is a website that has all my works, but from the age of 16 till I finished university.
Wow.
And it's the timeline of my life, the cringe. And
I'm disappointed that I didn't find this.
I refer to myself as Shahuda.
Shahuda. Why?
Yeah, it was like the name that my grandmother calls me, like an endearment form of my name. So that was my forum name.
Okay. And that's a very interesting thing. That actually, sorry, we haven't gone into the real podcast yet. Why do you have different names when, for example, writers or creators They have like different names.
It's called the pen name.
Pen name? Is it called pen name?
I mean, I think it allows writers to write more freely.
Okay.
Can you like now I write under Shahd Thani. Like my
Everyone
whole
knows.
community
Knows,
who
yeah.
I am. But like when I was writing as a child, like I could be anyone in the Arab world at least.
So it's just more of you don't want people to know who you are, so you can just basically write very freely. Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean nowadays I'm thankful that I was that smart that like like publishers can't really go through those works. My most cringe and angsty poetry when I was young, like I was a very sensitive child, so I had a lot of feelings. So I think I was dismissed like when I would talk in school or something, but like poetry for myself allowed me to be heard, allowed me to be seen.
Mashallah, that's really nice.
I think I force people to hear me. That's why I don't write anything.
I love that for you. I think it took me a long time to actually speak up in person. Like I think even with my sisters when we'd fight, we'd slip letters under the door.
Really? Wow, so no verbal fights.
No.
Just don't like you today. Why did you do that?
Sometimes, like, we're all introverts, so sometimes we can be very silent. We're all on Twitter, we're all scrolling or tweeting each other, but like nobody's talking in the living room.
Is that something that is shared amongst writers, that they tend to be an introvert?
I don't think it's a necessity.
No.
But I think you just have to enjoy your company, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, it seems that you had a very wholesome upbringing with your family and friends.
I mean, my dad was very proud of my writing. Like
Mashallah.
every time he'd go into a forum, he'd introduce himself as my dad.
Oh, okay.
And say like, I am the father who.
This is my daughter.
And my father, I'm the writer who has a daughter. Has a writer for a daughter.
That's beautiful.
I mean, it didn't allow me to make a lot of friends in the forum, but you know.
Yeah, because normally you don't want your parents to come and. That's very proud.
It's the confidence that parents have in you.
Yeah.
That increases your confidence as well.
Oh, that's very nice.
So, to know Shahd a little bit more, we want to know a bit about her preference, what she likes, what she doesn't like. So, we're going to ask her some random questions.
Okay, hit me.
And they have hidden meanings, so you have to listen.
Are you going to tell me the hidden meaning?
No, it's just going to be a quick rapid fire round.
Okay,
Yeah.
are you going to analyze my personality?
Yeah. Okay. Humans or robots?
Humans.
Humans writing poetry or robots writing poetry?
Humans writing poetry. Scandalous.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Always coffee.
Early morning or late night?
Late
For
night.
writing purposes?
No, early morning. Early morning.
Early morning.
I mean,
I need.
But some people do like midnight. They find midnight to be like more peaceful to write. Is that the case for you?
Maybe.
most of the time I have a deadline, so I don't really like whatever is available.
Reality.
But like I do prefer to write in the morning and be in my favorite cafe and be surrounded by my favorite barista. Like
Okay, answer the next question.
yeah,
It was a silent library or a busy cafe.
busy cafe.
We got that. Italian or Japanese food?
Italian or Japanese what?
Italian food or Japanese food?
Japanese food. Love my sushi.
Sushi.
Beach or jungle?
Beach.
Or rainforest?
Beach.
Beach. Winter or summer?
Winter. Although I'm a summer baby.
You're a summer baby. Well, you do live in UAE.
Yeah.
Which winter is coming soon?
Inshallah. Inshallah. Outdoors or indoors?
Indoors. That's creepy.
Even during winter.
I'm not really a very outdoorsy person. Like my idea of being outdoors is sitting in a cafe, like outside, just watching.
Indoor, but outdoor.
Outdoor. And last one, a yoga session or a spa day?
Spa day.
Spa day, any day.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we love. That question was just for me, for my satisfaction. And the last question is, if there was an author that you would like to meet in person, who would that be and why?
There are a lot of people come to mind. I mean, I love Emily Dickinson. I would have loved to meet her. Christina Rossetti, Osha Swedi. I would love to ask them what's their process.
What goes through their mind when they write?
What goes through their mind when they write? Why did they choose this or why did they choose that? Like, I would have loved to be their pen pal.
Okay.
And you have that, right, in writing?
Yeah.
Someone that you kind of write with? Is that...
I write and I've always written, like for the past 13 years at least, I've always written in community with Untitled Chapters, which is a writing group for Emirati women and women in general, where we gather and write together. And we're recently on break because we're all after our own individual.
Okay. Yeah, we will definitely have a talk more on the Untitled chapters. All right, so that's more of the relaxing and kind of like fun part of the podcast. Let's go on and switch our gears a bit on the more serious part, more complicated. I'm not. It's complicated for us, but maybe not so complicated for you.
So good cop and bad cop.
Yeah, that was our good cop. Now it's our.
Okay.
So I just really want to touch more on the role of poetry. I mean, we have very basic understanding of poetry. So if you can really share the light on the role of poetry in the society, and what kind of impact does poetry have in a culture? Is it very deep, or is it just on surface level?
No, I think it's very deep. Like poetry has always been used to talk about politics, to talk about history, to send messages, love letters, to praise and worship. Like it's always been there, and it's still there. Maybe like nowadays it's more accessible. Like before in the past, like not everyone could read and not everyone could access books. So this kind of accessibility was missing in the past.
Okay.
But nowadays, like we all have phones, and our phones are like, at least if we're following the right channels, we all have access to poetry.
So in terms of accessibility, perhaps it has become better, but what do you think about the quality of poetry? Maybe in the past it's a bit more deep, because maybe at that time it was something which is like a lot of people know poetry more. Is it, as I said, this is we are asking at a very basic level. Maybe there is that essence is still very strong in the modern world that we just do not know.
I think poetry always has rules and regulations. Like there's the way it's written, the qafiyya, especially Arabic poetry. Arabic poetry is it's formatted in a way that has to be. But like before, like the Arabs were so fluent that they could come up with these poems on the fly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just by heart, just like that.
It's how they talked. Like, like my grandmother, Allah yarhamha, she would sometimes sit and she would tell us a poem or tell us, and she'd tell me like her dad and her uncle were poets, and she'd remind me that we're descended from poets. So and sometimes it hurts me, like I don't think I know all the poems that she mentioned. Like I have some recorded, but like there's a lot of khararif or stories that I don't think that I'm gonna get enough time to gather or know the right people enough to ask.
So with my family, we have poets, but we always consider them the smart ones in the family. Yeah. Because they can make a very sometimes some complex ideas. They would explain it in a manner that transcends and goes into your heart. Yeah. And then sometimes something so simple, they reflect on it so deeply. So deeply, yeah. You did not. You were like, that. Okay, wait, I didn't see it like that. I wish I had that ability to understand. Yeah. And that's what Shahd said. Now it's more accessible, and I guess the Instagram poetry is more simplified for people like myself. Yeah. To be included.
Yeah. I feel like everyone should have poetry, or everyone should be able to, like like I had a bad day, I'd love to read a poem, like that kind of thing, you know, because it is comforting and it is revolutionary. Like you have the poets who are writing about Palestine. You have Sina Hashenbeck writing about Lebanon and the things that have been happening. And she writes ghazal. She's amazing.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting input into the role of poetry in society. And for the next topic, we just really want to talk more on the spiritual side of poetry and the connection of poetry to spirituality. As we know, I mean, if we look back into the history of poetry in Islamic history, the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself he admired good poetry, and there was many of the Sahabas, the companions of the Prophet, that they were masters of poetry, and their poetries were all about good things. How do you see the connection between what you do, which is poetry, which is writing amazing things, to your connection to God?
I always felt like everything I write is a prayer.
Okay.
Like I'm basically writing about my bad day or my bad friendship or my friendship breakup, or I'm writing about my mother or my grandmothers, and I'm praying for their souls. I'm praying for mine. I'm trying to process living life. Like when you have so much emotions and things touch you deeply, and sometimes only the page understands. And I always feel like while I'm writing, it's kind of like a plea to Allah. Like I'm sad, or I'm heartbroken, or I miss my grandmother. And like I have a line in one of my poems, like, I hope my poems reach you wherever you are. Because if you think of the dua is a poem. Like we're sitting and we're praying to Allah, and we're worshipping, we're praising, and at the same time, we're asking for the most minuscule thing. The most, like, it's not impossible, but like, we're asking for it like it is impossible. And I remember, I know that feeling. And when I write, it's kind of the same way. I'm sitting and I'm letting it transcend through me.
Mashallah. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's very true. Even when we make dua, it's encouraged that we say it beautifully, and not to just say, whatever you would want to give us, we will accept it. No, it's, you have to really utter and nicely utter and ask, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a very, very, very nice reflection on the connection between poetry and spirituality.
Shahd recently did a workshop, and the topic was connecting to your ancestors. And I found this very profound in the day and age where we're kind of distant from our elderly. So I found that very interesting, and I would love to know where Shahd got the inspiration to compile a workshop as unique as this.
August is the anniversary of both the death of my grandmothers, and Allah yarhamhum. Usually I feel sad about August, and this August I was like, no, I'm going to take action. And I reached out to Kutubna, and I met Shahd Al-Mtawa, the owner of Kutubna, and she was very enthusiastic and encouraging, and she really gave me a home in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Because I told her my topic and she loved it, and I posted about the ancestor workshop, and it was sold out in 2 days.
Yes. You did it twice, right?
I did it twice.
Yeah, I think Medina, you tried most time you missed it.
So now I know.
I mean, you're welcome to come to me anytime.
For free?
I mean, I accept coffee. It was like when I walked into Kutubna, there was a mural of a grandmother as I walked in, and I was like, how perfect is this? Is this serendipity or not? And Shada was in my first class, and she said, "That's my grandmother." And I was like,
really?
wow,
I
goosebumps.
didn't know that.
She has a mural of her grandmother there.
That's
And I
so
was like,
beautiful.
wow. And it felt like serendipity. It felt like it was meant.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to tell you that out of all the roles I have, like poet, writer, novelist, my favorite was being an instructor.
Really?
Like I felt like I was in my skin.
And was this the first time you did something of that kind?
It's not the first time. I've always ran workshops under untitled chapters. With untitled, I ran a book club. We did writing workshops. We did a write-a-thon, like a whole writing marathon. We had a writing marathon. With timed writing sprints.
Wow.
We had the terrace of Culinary Boutique. There was candlelight and moonlight. It was beautiful. I've done a lot of workshops that I've been very grateful for with untitled chapters, but this is the first time that I run a workshop under my name. Wow. It's not like the first time, but like
advertised under your name.
Advertised under my name. Like I ran a journaling workshop last year.
Yes.
And this ancestor workshop feels like I'm more in my skin and more comfortable.
Talking about instilling the love for poetry. I mean, I honestly, like, I appreciate a good poetry. Like when I hear it, I can hear the words coming. I can hear the words coming into my heart. I'm like, wow, that's really profound, that's profound.
Yes.
But to learn it, it's something else. Like I used to learn poetry. Maybe it's the way that it's being taught, but I did not like it.
I don't really like how I was taught anything in schools. Like the teachers were so hard. They were like they were so hard. No, I mean they weren't. I don't remember teachers being compassionate or being loving.
So is that? Would you say that that's how you would teach a child in a more kinder way?
I think I would teach them in a kinder way. I would teach them in a softer way. I would sing to them. I would, like tell them the rhymes softly. I would make them fun. So, like, I don't understand why the focus is trying to force feed these children as much information as possible. And like the longer hours at school, like that can't be healthy.
Unfortunately, that is the issue with some schools where we have so much that we need to cover. It doesn't matter if the child understood it. You don't have time to check whether they understood, whether they're loving it or not. And that really depends if you're a good teacher, a good human. You put extra effort to make sure that love is instilled in kids.
Sure.
I mean, I remember being bullied by my teachers. Like, like I remember them being frustrated and angry, and okay, they're only human. But like what was happening in their lives that had them taking out all their frustration on children. I mean, and they are very triggering. Children are the most triggering innocent creatures on the planet because, they ask you questions, they talk back, and we weren't raised to talk back. And sometimes that can make us deliriously angry. And I understand that now as an adult. But like as a child receiving so much hatred from a teacher.
Wow.
So you would say that being a teacher or someone who teaches poetry is something very important. The way that you teach can break it or make it.
Yeah,
in some way.
You actually have to teach a child.
Especially poetry. I mean, no offense. I mean, I love poetry, as I said, but I find it very difficult to learn poetry. Maybe is it maybe perhaps poetry is maybe made for some selected people, or is it, or do you find that it's really about the teacher, how the teacher can really attract people?
I think whoever taught you poetry left a block in you that you think that you cannot understand poetry because they might have shamed you. They might have like embarrassed you in front of others. I remember like I was in school, I was third grade, And I watched a cartoon that had a very nice song in it. I think that was the first time that I wrote a poem.
Really?
And I was like trying to rewrite the song because it was in my head. And then like I started playing with it and changing the words. And I was enjoying myself. And this was like during like sixth period, the English class. So he snatches it out of my hand and he starts reading it in public. And my first instinct was that I thought he was very proud of me because I was writing a poem. And then he basically shamed me in front of the boys, and he told them to laugh at me.
Why did he do that?
And he tore my poem.
Can I say something? So I remember this is in Melbourne when I was teaching, and the topic so we went through narrative, persuasive, and poetry came, and the class had a lot of fun because the teacher actually understood the concept of poetry and took the time to understand what they're teaching and then found the best way to transmit it to students. So when you are not confident as a teacher, and if you happen to not be a good human, shaming is number one thing that they do, because you're scared of the students finding out that you have no clue what you're talking about.
I mean, this teacher, like literally everyone in my family went and complained about him. Like everyone was traumatized on my behalf. And then he has the nerve to say that I'm really quiet in class and I don't participate. Like that was an excuse.
Because you're writing good poetry.
Like it was my first poem. Like that was his excuse for like embarrassing me, humiliating me in front of people. And I wasn't a naughty child. I wasn't the child who would talk back. I'm mute most of the time, especially like when a teacher is screaming at me, I'm at my most silent. And so now my best friend's son, Abdullah, and his brother Isa, I talk to them every day that they should never be afraid to talk back to their teacher.
Respectfully, yeah.
Respectfully, but like I teach them over and over how to set their boundaries because I wasn't taught. I was taught to be quiet and let the adults handle it. And it hit me how dangerous this was, because years later, even in a meeting with like lots of people and someone's like interrogating me, I'd freeze.
It had a lasting effect.
Yeah, mashallah. That shows really important of positive, constructive feedback, from people, and it really affects a student, when they do not receive a proper channel of education. And that sounds really good. Thank you very much for your insight in that. We're just going to go to the last topic of today. So you are a part of a group called Untitled Chapters. Would you be able to just explain a bit further what the Untitled Chapter is about?
I'm a founding member of Untitled Chapter.
Okay.
And
wow, founding member.
Yeah, it happened like it was on Twitter, and this Emirati girl reached out to me, and as she reached out to me, I realized, and we both have the same line in our bios. Like mine was, I hear voices in my head. I'm not crazy. I've transcended. And hers said something like, I write because I hear voices in my head. And it's like, I'm a writer, you're a writer too. Oh my God. And she's like, let's start a group for other writers. And we started, and like there was a kind of a meetup, and different girls joined. There was Sham al-Bastaki, there was Asma al-Jilani, Afratiq. So many people were part of Untitled Chapters. And we, like, the first thing we did was that we gathered a lot of our pieces and we released like these small chapbooks.
How long ago was this? How long has it?
It was 2012.
2012.
Mashallah, it's been a long time.
It's been a long
12
time.
years now.
Yeah. Almost 13. Like
Almost 13
and
years.
The founding members are still there, which means that good things can produce.
I mean, we took a break. Like, after COVID, it kind of slowed down and a lot of us got busy, like, like you're doing community work for so long, and it gets to the point where you're not focused enough on your own writing career.
Right.
And even like the writers who were part of Untitled Chapter, like a lot of them grew up, they found different interests, and it is as it should be. Like you can move in your life, you can do different things, you can decide to change your mind. You might not always want to be a writer who is published, but at the same time, you have a strong foundation in writing that it never leaves you.
And is that what Untitled Chapters does? Sets a really good foundation knowledge in writing?
Yeah.
Could it help in that from those interested?
We did. It was a community. It was a community for us to connect and kind of talk to about the journey in writing. Like when I finished my blog novel, I was devastated. Like, the voices in my head are gone. But I mean, they were there for me. They were my family. They are my family.
Inshallah.
And like, even though we're on break right now, I do believe that Untitled Chapter may come back someday.
And I think you've kind of established a community for Emirati women to inspire them consistently, and for them to come back some way when they are interested.
Yeah.
I
mean, it is a journey. We're all on the journey.
So it's more like a safe place for poets, I guess.
A family of
poets. Family, mashallah.
I would like to go back to the question you asked about children. And how could we instill love of poetry. In our private conversation, you said you recommended certain books. So for me, I started liking poetry actually when I became a teacher, and I had to teach poetry.
Okay.
And there were certain books that we introduced to the students, so they can see poetry happening naturally, like rhyming, and introducing them to that. So is there any recommendations that you would give parents?
I don't really have recommendations now off the top of my head, but like I do recommend that whatever poem that you have, or if it's a rhyming poem, that you keep saying it to children. Like, remember me when I am gone away, when you can no longer hold me by the hand. Like those kind of words that stay with you, and they're easy to memorize.
And they're also in nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
They're also in books. You can actually find, you don't actually know what is poetry until you...
I guess you need to understand what poetry is to recognize it.
I think I started with, like the Dr. Seuss books, Green Eggs and Ham, Sam I Am. Like those kind of rhymes were easy, but like I'm pretty sure that children are a very discerning audience. I think a lot of people treat them like they are very infantile or infantilize them.
They're actually very, very smart.
They're very smart. Like if you sing a song to them, they will remember it and they can sing it back to you.
Definitely.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Ms. Shahd Thani, for being our first guest in the Kalam Space Podcast. We thoroughly enjoyed your presence. Madina and I would like to really thank you for today. And before you go, we do want to ask the last question is, if people were to find you out there, where can people normally meet you, or is there any events events that you are working on that people can come and join in?
I can be found in open mics, book festivals, anywhere where there's book, you can usually find me. Sometimes I'm wandering in Kunukuniya. You can usually find me in the romance section. But like, I love the events in Dubai. I think we're very lucky to live in the UAE, where
alhamdulillah, there's a lot of events coming up. One of them is the Sharjah Book Fair, which is coming up as well.
Sharjah Book Fair, Emirates Literature Festival is coming in February. And there are so many workshops to join, so many people to see.
Inshallah, to learn as well.
It's always great fun, and I think we're very blessed. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much, everyone. Do like, share, and subscribe this podcast, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.